Did you know that ADHD diagnoses have more than doubled in the last few years? But are we really sure that every single one of those cases is real? Hi, today we are talking about something you have probably heard a lot about, ADHD. Maybe someone you know has it, or you have even wondered if you might have it too. ADHD diagnoses are on the rise lately, and that's got some people thinking, are we always getting the diagnosis right? Or are we sometimes too quick to call it ADHD when it might be something else? In this video, we are going to look at a side of ADHD that doesn't get talked about enough. How it might be getting diagnosed more often than it should be. This is a pretty serious issue that can really affect people's lives. By the time we are done, you will have a better understanding of what ADHD really is, why we are seeing so many more cases, and what we might be able to do about it. We will also look at some natural and practical ways which can be used to manage the symptoms of this condition. So, whether you're a parent, a student, or just curious, stick with me. On this journey, I am Meenu, your wellness advisor from Fresh Earth Living. If you like this type of content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We have got loads to go through, and it's super important stuff. Alright, let's start with the basics. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a condition that affects how the brain works, especially when it comes to focusing, sitting still, and controlling impulses. People with ADHD often need different strategies to help them manage these challenges and stay on track. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain is a remote control car. Most of the time, you are in control, steering it where you want to go. But with ADHD, it's like the remote has a mind of its own. Sometimes it speeds off in random directions, even when you're trying to keep it on track. However, ADHD doesn't look the same in everyone. Just like how some people are better at maths, while others might be great at an art, ADHD can show up in different ways for different people. People with ADHD often struggle with three main things: paying attention, staying still, and resisting the urge to act on impulse. This can make everyday tasks like focusing in a meeting or class, finishing important work, or even just sitting through a movie really tough. For some, the biggest challenge might be staying focused. These people might be labeled as daydreamers because their minds often drift off, especially when they are supposed to be paying attention. This is called the inattentive type of ADHD. They might forget where they put their things, struggle to finish tasks, or find it hard to listen during a long conversation. On the other hand, some people might feel like they have way too much energy, almost like they are powered by a never-ending battery. This is known as the hyperactive impulsive type of ADHD. These individuals might have trouble sitting still, might fidget a lot, or might talk non-stop. They might also act on impulse, doing things without thinking them through first, like grabbing something off a shelf without asking or interrupting someone during a conversation. Now here is one important fact. Many people with ADHD might have a mix of both of these types. They might find it hard to focus at times, but also feel restless and full of energy. This is known as the combined type, and it's actually the most common form of ADHD. So, just because one person with ADHD struggles mainly with focus, it doesn't mean everyone with ADHD will have the same experience. This is why understanding the different ways ADHD can show up is so important. You know, not every kid who daydreams in class or can't sit still has ADHD. Sometimes stuff like that is just part of growing up. Or it could be because of something else like stress, anxiety, or even just being bored out of their mind with what's going on. That's why it's super important that people or even doctors don't jump to slap an ADHD label on someone without really checking things out first. Think about it like this. If you had a headache and the doctor just handed you some meds without asking any questions or figuring out what's really going on, you wouldn't be cool with that, right? It's the same deal with ADHD. If someone is diagnosed too quickly, they might end up with treatments or meds they don't even need, and that could actually do more harm than good. Getting the diagnosis right means taking the time to really understand what's happening. Doctors need to look at all the signs, talk to parents, teachers, or maybe even friends to get the whole picture. They've got to make sure it's not something else causing the behavior. Only then they can be like, yeah, this is ADHD, and come up with a plan that actually helps. Nailing the diagnosis is super important because it's not just about slapping a name on the problem. It's about making sure the person gets the right kind of support. Whether it's help with focusing, managing their energy, or learning to think before acting. The right diagnosis leads to the right solutions. Let's have a look at some numbers to understand how much ADHD cases have increased over the years. It might surprise you. Over the past few decades, ADHD diagnoses have more than doubled, especially in kids. In some places, the numbers have jumped even higher. Like in United States, about 10% of kids are diagnosed with ADHD. That's 1 in every 10 kids. Wild, right? And it's not just kids we are talking about here. More and more adults are getting diagnosed with ADHD too. Actually, studies show that the number of adults with ADHD has spiked a lot in the last 10 years. But what do these numbers really mean? On one hand, it's awesome that more people are getting the help they need. But on the flip side, we have got to wonder, are these diagnoses spot on? Or are we sometimes mistaking regular behaviors or other issues for ADHD? These stats are a big deal because they shape how we think about ADHD as a society. When we see numbers this high, it can make us quicker to label behaviors as ADHD, even when they might not be. That's why it's super important to dig deeper into these numbers and figure out what's really going on. In the US, like we talked about earlier, about 10% of kids are diagnosed with ADHD. But if you look at other countries, the numbers can be way different. For example, in some European countries, the rate is much lower, around 1 to 2%. That's a pretty huge difference, right? So, why do these numbers vary so much from place to place? Well, part of it might be how ADHD is understood and diagnosed in different cultures. In some places, doctors and schools might be quicker to spot and label ADHD, while in others, they might be more careful and take a slower approach. Another thing to think about is how behavior is viewed. What one culture might call hyperactive or distracted, another might see it as just normal energy or curiosity. This shows that the increase in ADHD diagnosis isn't just because more people have ADHD, it's also about how we define and recognize it. These global differences really highlight that ADHD is a complicated issue. It's not just about the numbers, it's about understanding the context behind those numbers. And that's why we need to be more careful when we talk about ADHD, especially when it comes to diagnosing it. Do you wonder now why ADHD might be diagnosed more often than it should be? One big reason could be increased awareness. Over the years, more people have become familiar with ADHD. Teachers, parents, and doctors are now more likely to spot the signs and think, hey, maybe it's ADHD. While this is great for catching cases that might have been missed before, but it can also mean we might be too quick to label someone with ADHD when it might not actually be the case. Another reason might be the pressure to perform. Just think about it. Kids today are expected to sit still, focus, and follow instructions for long periods of time, especially in school. But not every kid is wired to handle that easily, especially when they are still young. So when a child has trouble with these expectations, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that they have ADHD, even though they might just need a different way of learning or more time to grow into those skills. We also need to think about the role of stress and anxiety. These are pretty common issues that can look a lot like ADHD. For example, a kid who's anxious might have had a hard time concentrating or sitting still, but the real problem is different. If we are not careful, we might mistake these signs for ADHD when something else is really going on. And then there is the whole technology thing. With so many distractions right at our fingertips, phones, video games, social media, it's harder than ever to stay focused. This can make normal struggles with attention seem worse than they actually are, leading to more ADHD diagnosis. So, while it's super important to recognize and treat ADHD when it's real, we also need to be careful about overdiagnosing. What happens when someone, especially a kid, is labeled with ADHD when maybe they shouldn't be? Imagine being told that there is something wrong with the way you think, act, or learn. For a child, hearing that they have a disorder like ADHD can be super confusing and even a little scary. They might start believing they are different in a bad way, or they can't do the things other kids can do. This can lead to low self-esteem and self-doubt, and those feelings can stick with them as they grow up. For parents, it can be just as tough. They want the best for their kid, and when they hear a diagnosis like ADHD, they might start worrying about their child's future, their schoolwork, and whether they'll be able to succeed. It can be overwhelming to deal with all the information, advice, and treatment options, especially when you're not even sure if the diagnosis is spot on. Families can feel stressed out, guilty, or even ashamed, wondering if they did something wrong or missed something important. This can create tension at home, making it harder for everyone to feel supported and understood. So, while getting the right diagnosis can open the door to the right help and support, getting it wrong can cause real harm, not just for the child, but for the whole family. That's why it's so important to make sure the diagnosis is accurate. When someone is diagnosed with ADHD, medication is often one of the first things people think about. And while meds can be really helpful for a lot of people, they are not always the right answer, especially if the diagnosis isn't 100% accurate. ADHD medications are pretty powerful. They can help improve focus, control impulses, and manage hyperactivity. But they also come with some risks, especially if they're given to someone who might not actually need them. One big concern is that if we rely too much on medication, we might miss out on other ways to help. For example, if a child is having trouble focusing in class, maybe what they really need is a different kind of learning environment or more support from their teachers. But if we jump straight to medication, we might overlook these other solutions that could be just as effective, if not more so. Then there is the risk of side effects. ADHD meds can cause things like trouble sleeping, loss of appetite, or even mood swings. For some kids, these side effects can just be as tough to deal with as the ADHD symptoms themselves. And if the diagnosis wasn't spot on to begin with, they are stuck dealing with these side effects without getting the real help they actually need. It's not just about the physical effects either. Taking medication can change how someone sees themselves. They might start thinking they need the medicine to be normal or to do well in school. This can lead to a sense of dependency where they believe they can't succeed without the meds, even if that's not really true. So, while medication can be a useful tool for managing ADHD, it's not something to take lightly. It's super important to make sure it's really necessary, that it's just one part of a bigger plan that includes other types of support and treatment. Another important aspect of being diagnosed with ADHD is on someone's identity and self-perception. When a child or even an adult is told that they have ADHD, it can really shape how they see themselves. They might start thinking of themselves as the kid with ADHD or the person who can't focus. This can be especially tough if the diagnosis isn't even accurate. When someone believes they have a condition like ADHD, they might start living up to that label, even if it's not really who they are. This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you are constantly told that you are easily distracted, you might start noticing every little time your mind wanders, even though everyone's mind does that from time to time. Over time, this can limit what a person thinks they can do. They might avoid certain activities or challenges because they think, I have ADHD, so I'm not good at this. This can hold them back from trying new things or reaching their full potential. Not because they can't do it, but because they believe they can't. It's not just about what they think either. Other people might start treating them differently too, like teachers, friends, or even family members. They might lower their expectations or treat them like they're fragile, which can reinforce the idea that they are limited by their ADHD. But in reality, they might just need a different approach or a little more time to succeed. That's why it's so important to be careful with diagnosis. When we label someone with ADHD, we are not just giving them a diagnosis, we are giving them a new way to see themselves. And that can have a big impact on their confidence, their opportunities, and their future. Now that we have discussed about ADHD and the challenges that come with it, it is time to check out some practical and natural ways to manage it. The strategies which we are about to discuss can benefit both children and grown-ups. Let's kick off things by talking about routines. Routines might sound a bit boring, but they are actually one of the most powerful tools for managing ADHD. Why? Because they bring structure and consistency to your day, which is exactly what the brain needs when dealing with ADHD. Think of a routine like a roadmap. When you have a clear path to follow, it's easier to stay on track and avoid distractions. For someone with ADHD, a routine can help keep their day organized and predictable, which reduces the feeling of being overwhelmed. The key here is consistency. The more regular your routine, the easier it becomes for your brain to slip into those habits. Over time, this can help with focus, completing tasks, and even managing energy levels. It's just like building a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger it gets. So what does a strong routine look like? Let's look at some practical examples. For kids, a good routine might start with a consistent morning routine. Waking up at the same time each day, getting dressed, having breakfast, and then heading off to school or starting their day's activities. Having this predictable start can set the tone for the rest of the day. After school, it could be helpful to have a homework time that happens at the same time every day. This helps the child know what to expect and reduces the struggle of getting started. Following homework, there could be a scheduled time for play or relaxation, which gives the brain a chance to recharge before the evening routine starts. For adults, routines can be just as helpful. Starting the day with a set morning routine, like getting up, exercising, and planning the day ahead, can create a strong foundation. At work, breaking the day into chunks with regular breaks can help maintain focus. And in the evening, having a wind-down routine, like for example, turning off screens, reading, or doing some light stretching can improve sleep quality, which is crucial for managing ADHD symptoms. The key is to keep these routines simple and realistic. It's not about being rigid, but about having a steady rhythm. Over time, these routines become second nature. This makes it easier to manage ADHD symptoms. Next up, let's talk about a strategy called chunking. This means breaking big tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. When you have ADHD, large projects or tasks can feel overwhelming and scary, like trying to climb a mountain in one go. But what if you could turn that mountain into a series of small hills? Chunking works by dividing a task into parts that can be tackled one at a time. This reduces anxiety and makes it easier to start, which is often the hardest part for someone with ADHD. It also gives you clear short-term goals, which in turn make any progress more visible. For a child with homework, instead of saying, "do your homework," you could break it down into steps like spending 15 minutes on maths, taking a 5-minute break, then spend 15 minutes on reading. This makes the task less daunting. For adults, let's say you have a report to write at work. Instead of facing the whole task at once, breaking down into few parts. These could be, first, outline the report, then write the introduction, and after that research and write each section. Take breaks in between. Each step feels achievable, and completing each one gives a sense of accomplishment that in turn motivates you to continue. Similarly, in chores like cleaning the house, you could chunk the task into various steps, like pick up and organize the living room in one step, then clean the kitchen after a break, and then vacuum the bedrooms after another break. Each task can be done in manageable blocks of time, and the progress is clear and encouraging. The beauty of chunking is that it can be applied to virtually any task and reduces the overwhelm that often comes with ADHD. It's a simple method that teaches the brain to focus on one simple task at a time and builds confidence. Now, let's talk about mindfulness and relaxation techniques. Mindfulness is all about paying full attention to what's happening in the present moment. It can be a powerful tool for managing ADHD because it helps you calm your mind and in turn reduce any impulsivity. Practicing mindfulness means observing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without any sort of judgment. It's like watching clouds pass in the sky, just noticing them without needing to do anything about them. This can be especially helpful for someone with ADHD as it trains the brain to focus and stay engaged in the present rather than getting carried away by distractions. Getting started with mindfulness can be simple. One basic technique is deep breathing. Just sit comfortably, close your eyes, and focus on taking slow, deep breaths. Count to 4 as you inhale, hold it for a moment, and then count to 4 as you exhale. Repeat this for a few minutes each day. Another easy practice is a body scan. Start at the top of your head and slowly move your attention down to your toes, noticing any sensations or areas of tension. This not only helps in grounding your attention, but also relaxes the body. For those who prefer something more dynamic, yoga can be a great option. Yoga combines physical poses with deep breathing and mindfulness, making it an excellent practice for both body and mind. You don't need to be an expert. Just a few simple poses can make a big difference. Following these practices as a part of your daily routine does not take a lot of time. Even just 5 to 10 minutes a day can have good benefits. Over time, these moments of mindfulness can improve concentration, reduce stress, and help manage the symptoms of ADHD. Enough of relaxing and focusing. Let's move a bit now. Yes, we are talking about exercise and physical activity. These aren't just good for your body, they're also equally good for your brain, especially for those managing ADHD. Exercises release chemicals in the brain like dopamine and serotonin, which play key roles in attention and mood regulation. For someone with ADHD, whose brain might struggle with these very functions, exercise can be a natural and effective way to boost their brain's performance. So what kind of exercise works best? The good news is, it doesn't have to be anything too intense or time-consuming. Those activities which particularly require both physical exertion and mental engagement are the most beneficial in this case. For children, this might look like playing team sports like soccer or basketball, which not only involve running and coordination but also strategic thinking and social interaction. These elements can provide a nice stimulus for the brain and are often more engaging for the kids. For adults, structured exercise routines such as group fitness classes, martial arts, or even dance can prove similar benefits. These activities help in focusing the mind and are also great for reducing stress and anxiety. Like while dancing, not only do you engage your body, but also keep your mind busy as you have to always think of the next dance steps and coordination. Outdoor activities like hiking or cycling are also excellent as they combine physical exercise with sensory engagement with the environment, which can be very calming and grounding. Remember, the key is consistency and enjoyment. Choose activities that you or your child genuinely enjoy, as this will make it easier to stick to the routine. Even simple things like daily walks or short bike rides can make a significant difference in managing ADHD symptoms. Another good way of managing ADHD is monitoring and reducing sugar intake, especially refined sugars, which is found in sweets, cakes, carbonated drinks, and bakery products. These can cause spikes in energy levels, followed by sharp drops, which may show symptoms of restlessness in people with ADHD. By cutting down on these types of sugars, you can help maintain more stable energy levels throughout the day. This can gradually improve focus and make you less hyperactive. So, how can you reduce sugar in a practical way? The easiest way is by switching sugary snacks with healthier options like fruits, nuts, or yogurt. I will make a video around healthy sugar substitutes and will leave a link to that video in the description. Getting regular exposure to sunlight is another natural way that can be surprisingly effective in managing ADHD symptoms. Sunlight helps regulate the body's natural rhythms and sparks the production of serotonin. Just a few minutes of sun exposure every day can help you in improving your mood. It can better the quality of sleep that you're taking and reducing your anxiety levels. To make the most of sun exposure, aim for 10 to 30 minutes of sunlight a few times a week, depending on your skin type and local climate. Early morning or late afternoon sun is gentle and is less likely to cause skin damage. Always remember to wear sunscreen if you plan to be out for longer periods, especially during peak hours. Don't forget to check out my other video around benefits of sunlight. I will leave a link in the description. In today's digital world, gadgets are everywhere. For people with ADHD, too much screen time can increase symptoms like inattention, restlessness, and impulsivity. Screens often provide a rapid and intense stimulation that can be very engaging but also overwhelming for the ADHD brain. This can make it difficult to then transition to less stimulating tasks like schoolwork or chores, which require a focused attention. Another downside of staying indoors and engaging with gadgets for long periods is that people, especially children, are then deprived of other important experiences like physical play and interaction with nature, both of which are helpful while trying to manage ADHD symptoms. Thus, it is important to set limits on screen time. For example, you can decide that gadgets to be used for only up to an hour after school and then put away during meal times and for at least an hour before bed. Create gadget-free zones in the home, like the dining room, so families can interact without distractions. It is also equally important to encourage outdoor activities like playing in the park, riding a bike, or simply going for a walk. For every hour spent on a gadget, encourage an equal amount of time in physical or creative play. As we have already covered, these can help improve focus, reduce anxiety, and improve the overall well-being. I hope with all these methods, not only would you be able to manage the symptoms of ADHD, but also enhance your life and general well-being. Let's take a moment to think about ADHD in a different way. You know, everyone zones out sometimes, gets restless, or makes hurried decisions once in a while. When we talk about ADHD, we are really just looking at one side of a whole world of normal behaviors that everyone experiences. So, rather than viewing ADHD as something odd or out of the ordinary, let's think of it as just one part of the vast spectrum of how people's brains operate. Everyone's brain has its unique characters. It's just that some of these characters are more noticeable than others. By looking at ADHD this way, we start to better appreciate and support each other's differences. It's not about sticking labels on what's normal or not normal. Instead, it's about understanding and accepting the variety in how we all think and behave. This approach can help us in creating support systems that truly suit the individual, rather than forcing everyone into the same mold. Then, let's also support the idea skills before pills. This means that before we jump to medication, let's think about other ways to manage ADHD symptoms. Medication can be helpful, but it's not the only option, and it's not the best first step. Developing habits like organizing tasks, managing time, or using mindfulness can be very powerful. These are real skills that can improve focus, reduce impulsivity, and even boost self-esteem over time. For many people, these strategies can reduce or sometimes even eliminate the need for medication. They help build a strong foundation that supports all areas of life, not just the symptoms of ADHD. And remember, every person is different. What works for one might not work for another. That's why it's crucial to try out different strategies and see what fits best. This approach not only addresses ADHD symptoms, but also strengthens overall mental health and well-being. Finally, I think we shall also talk about empowerment and support, two key elements that can make a huge difference for someone dealing with ADHD. Having ADHD doesn't define who you are or what you can achieve. It's just one part of you. People with ADHD have incredible strengths, things like creativity, energy, and the ability to think outside the box. These qualities are amazing, and they can take you far in life. It's important to focus on these strengths. With the right support and strategies, anyone with ADHD can manage the challenges and make the most of their unique talents. Finding the right kind of help is crucial, whether it's through therapy, coaching, community support, or online resources. And for those around someone with ADHD, whether you're a parent, teacher, friend, or employer, it's about offering support that's based on understanding and respect. It's about helping them find ways to succeed in their own way. Together, we can create an environment where everyone feels valued and empowered. An environment that celebrates all kinds of minds and all kinds of talents. Because when we support each other's differences, we all do better. We have covered a lot today about ADHD, from understanding what it really is to exploring different ways to manage it without immediately turning to medication. We have seen that ADHD is just one part of the vast spectrum of human behavior, and that managing it effectively involves a combination of understanding, skills development, and support. If this discussion opened new perspectives for you, or if you found something particularly helpful, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with others who might benefit from it. And if you have any experiences or tips of your own related to managing ADHD, we would love to hear about them in the comments. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on more helpful videos like this one. Speaking of which, we are planning a video around sleep, learning how getting good quality sleep can be a game changer and the best scientific ways to get it. You won't want to miss this one. I'm also planning to create a community for like-minded people who believes in natural therapies and cures. Please show this video a lot of love so we get the motivation to work on this initiative. In our community, I will share regular doses of information like this, along with written material, books, articles, and whatever is needed to support the cause. Thank you for watching, and remember, whether you have ADHD or know someone who does, there is a whole community out here supporting you. Together, we can understand better, manage better, and live better. See you next time.